Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to GS 182, which is your introductory biology course. My name is Vincent Wong, and I will be your teacher for the semester. So before we begin, I just want to go through a few housekeeping tasks, um, telling you where to find things on the new learning management system, and also give you information about the course itself in terms of the type of assessments you would expect and the requirements um, for each week. I sent out an email to you guys, I think earlier this week, and then I sent another one this morning. I assume you guys got it. That's how you received the link to attend the class. So as you probably heard from your morning class teacher already, our learning platform is called Centennial Luminate, and it's very important that you familiarize yourself with navigating through the platform. It is where we will be posting all your learning materials. And given this is an online course, that's also the place where you will be doing a lot of your assessments. Okay, so everything I am doing right now is being recorded, and I will post the recordings on Luminate after each class. So if you need to rewatch it because some of the concepts were a little bit complicated and you need to go through it again, then you have that option available to you. Now, if you miss a class, of course, you can also catch up with the recordings. Okay, so when you log on to Luminate, and I will just post the link in the chat box there for you in case you for some reason have not received it. Once you get to that, you will see all the courses you are taking. For me, these are all the courses that I'm teaching, and your section code is 201. Okay, so the picture you will recognize as the bio course is this DNA diagram right here, right? So you click on that, and you will see all the course material related to biology. Now, it's important for you to remember your section code when you send email to me. You need to tell me you are from you have to tell me you're from biology class, and your section is 201. Okay. I have other courses that are also 201, but for another subject. Okay. And then I also have other biology classes that has a different section code. So you need to tell me both pieces of information so that I know which class you're from, and therefore I can answer your question accurately. All right. So once you log onto the course page, I actually post all the material for the entire course for you already. Okay, so like if you feel like learning ahead, you want to download all the notes and print them and put it in a binder, you're more than welcome to do that. Or if you want to do it like week by week, that's okay as well. But everything is already uploaded. So first thing you should do when you have a moment after class is to look at the course information module. They call it module, but it's just like a folder. You click into that, and you will see several important documents. So there is the course outline, which basically gives you information about the course itself. It breaks down the evaluations for you. And there is also a schedule in there that tells you what happens in each week. However, we are not necessarily going to be following that schedule. Okay. Here, I'll click into it and show you, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Okay, so here it is. It's actually it is a legal document that you should keep a copy for yourself, because in the future, after you finish from this program, maybe you decided to do another program either at the college or at another college, and they have a similar course, and you're like, hey, I already took this at Centennial. can I not take it again? Then they would ask you for the course outline, right? So this is the document that you will give them, and then they will examine it and see if the courses are similar enough, then maybe you will get an exemption from it. So please keep a copy of the course outline. Just download it. There's a button on the top right that you can use to download it and keep a good copy for yourself. So you can read through it if you want, but I'll be telling you most of these things as we go on. So there is a schedule here, but we are not going to be following this schedule. You will still learn everything, okay, don't worry. But because sometimes, we go at different pace depending on whether this is online or like in person. So it's not too practical to follow this exactly as it is. So instead, in terms of when things are happening, you should be downloading the weekly schedule, okay, which is the second file here under course information. So you click on weekly schedule and there it is. Okay. So again, download a copy and it will tell you when things are happening. So today is our first day of class, and we will be, after I tell you all about all these background stuff, we'll be learning about the scientific method. Okay, and then we'll continue doing that next week. And then your first quiz is going to be on January 27th, and then you're going to have your labs and so on and so forth, right? So this is definitely an important file to print out perhaps, and stick it on the fridge because that's when all the actions are going to be happening. By the way, just stop me anytime if you have any questions. You can press the raise hand button or type your question rather in the chat box. Contact info for your teacher, that's me. If you click onto that, that's my name, Vincent. You can just call me Vincent. It's fine. You don't have to call me, professor or whatever. Just Vincent is fine, or Mr. Wong if you are more comfortable with that. And here is my email. I reply email very, very quickly. If you email me within like the regular school day, like from 8 to 5 or something like that, then typically I reply to you within the hour. Okay. If for some reason you email me and you have not hear back from me for more than 2 days, that means I did not receive your email. And there could be a number of reasons for that. Okay, maybe you type in the wrong address, or sometimes maybe the email didn't go through. Whatever the reason, if you haven't hear back from me for more than 2 days, then just send a follow-up email. Okay, it's like, oh, I sent you this a couple of days ago and I haven't heard back. Just want to follow up on it, and then I will always reply your email. Okay, I'll never ignore them. Once again, when you email me, please include the following information: your name. Now, sometimes you have a preferred name that's different than the one that's listed in the in the system, and that's totally fine. So you can use your preferred name, but please put in bracket what your registered name is. In the past, I have people who didn't do that, and then I couldn't find the person in the class. And then, I'm not sure which class they are from, and therefore it delays my reply, right, to getting them the right answer or whatever they were looking for. Okay, student number would be nice. The course, once again, is biology. And for the course section, it is 201. Okay, so just include all that information when you sign your name at the bottom when you send me the email. The Zoom link for class, that's the one that you're using right now. It's the same link every class. Please bookmark it. If you lost it, just come here and click on that, and then it will automatically pop up. There's a FAQ. You can read that when you have time. One of the most frequently asked question is whether or not we have a textbook. Do you need to buy a textbook for the course? The answer is no. Most of the things I teach you will all be in the PowerPoints as well as the study guides, and I'm going to show you where those are in a second. And in addition to the study guides and the PowerPoints, I also write a lot of notes during class. So, for example, like I had a class this morning, and in addition to the PowerPoints, we also took a bunch of notes, right? So these class notes, I will make available to you um, at the end of class as well. Okay, so I'm going to post them online, and I'll show you where to find them in a bit. Your chemistry teacher told me she already went through the lockdown browser with you guys. Is that correct? Can someone please confirm that?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So for those of you who may not have chemistry this morning, very briefly, lockdown browser is something that we use when you do a test. Okay. It's exactly what it sounds like. It locks your browser down so you cannot access other things on your computer. It does not allow you to access the internet, for example. It's just something that we do. Okay. So if you already heard from your chemistry teacher, fantastic. If you have not, for some reason, you can click into the file here, and there's a little video that you can watch, and you can basically read through it and see what happens. Now, I know some courses that you're taking might require you to also turn on a webcam during the test. That is not the case for biology. Okay, I cannot speak for all the teachers you have, but for my course, you do not need to have a webcam. Okay, you still need to have lockdown browser though. Okay, which is the software that you download. Okay, there's a video you can watch here to see. Okay, there is a file for support available at Centennial. If you need counseling services, if you need support for mental health, financial support, all that stuff, lots of information here you can look at. There's also a little document here regarding the use of AI. The short answer is no, you are not supposed to use AI to complete coursework, not for my course. Okay, so and it's relatively easy to tell. Once you've marked, hundreds and hundreds of papers, it's really easy to tell whether something is it's AI generated or not. So please do not use that, especially when you're submitting your lab reports and things like that. And if you want more information, you can click on it and read it yourself. Are we okay so far? Any questions, concerns about anything I've said so far? All right. So again, feel free to stop me anytime if anything comes to your mind. So this is a very important folder. It's called Class Notes and Lecture Recordings. At the end of each class, this will be updated. Right now, there is only the lecture recording links, and you can click on it, and it will take you to an online document. And it's empty right now, but after today's class, so for example, today is what, January 8th, and the topic we're doing is scientific method part 1, and then I will have the link. Okay, the link is just like a YouTube. Like I will post the recording of this on YouTube, and then I will give you the YouTube link, and then you can go watch it. All right. Now I have to mention this. Sometimes right now I'm looking at like 26 students here, which is great. It's almost full class. I think we have 30 something students in the class, but 27 of you are here. This is fantastic, and that's usually how it is at the beginning of the semester, right? People come to class, and then they are all fire up and excited for the course. But as time goes on, it's I tend to see the attendance go down a little bit, and people are like, "Oh, I can just watch the recordings." It's not really the same thing, okay? I really do encourage you to come to class, even though the recordings will be provided, because in class, like I said, we'll be writing notes together, And it's just different when you're here and copying the notes physically with me, rather than you watch it later online and might, you might skip the lecture, skip some parts and miss some important information. We also will be doing a lot of interaction. There will be chance for you to do some practice test questions with me. I will do some polls and some small discussions, all of which will be beneficial for you. And it's hard for you to pick those things up when you're just watching the recordings, okay? But the recordings are available to you in case you have to miss class for whatever other reasons, or if you need to rewatch some of the things that I'm teaching. All right. Okay, let's see what else I have to tell you. Okay, so that's the recordings, and then the class notes that we take, I will put them in the folder if they are like if we take any notes during that class. Okay, you see what I mean. Basically, just come back here and click on this big green squares for all the stuff that are going on in the class. Now, there are a total of 10 lectures in the course. And I've created a module or a folder for each one of them. So here you will see lecture one is scientific method. Um, how long will the recording be available? It will be available to you until the end of the. It will be there. Okay, I'm not gonna take it down. Okay, so like you can bookmark them. Some people even use it after they graduate from this program. Okay, so it will be on YouTube unless YouTube delete my account. It will always be there. Okay, so I've created one folder for each of the lecture. The Each of the folder will have two subfolders. Okay, one folder is lecture notes, and then the other is studying resources. So it's very self-explanatory. The lecture notes would be the PowerPoint slide, which is like the full PowerPoint slide. So if you were taking notes digitally, you might want to download that version. Okay. There is also this is the one I emailed to you as an attachment because you didn't have access to the to this platform until today, right? So I already emailed this to you, and hopefully some of you have printed this out, and you can take physical note on it. It's the same thing. These two are the same thing. Okay. The second one is just like a what do you call it? Like a printer friendly version of it. Okay. There's this little special button you can try out to download different like to download the file in a different format, and I think it just hang. Hold on, let me see if I can restart this thing. This is a new platform. I don't know if you guys are aware of it. So I am also learning how to use it. I mean, I tested out a couple times and try to make sure everything runs smoothly. But if you found any broken links or things are not working or whatever, please do let me know. Just send me an email and say, "Oh, I tried to access this file and it's not working." I'll try to fix it. Okay. Anyway, the button is gone now, but if you click on it, then there are other formats available to you. Okay, including like a translated version of the notes to a different language. Okay, so that's the lecture notes. And then there is the study resources. Very important to use the study guide to prepare for the quizzes. Okay, don't go online and search for studying materials and studying notes. Okay, just use what I have provided for you. Okay, the tests and the quizzes, they are very reasonable. I'm not trying to fail anyone here. Okay, the stuff are completely based on everything we learned in class. So if you come to class, you do your homework, you study, and you prepare, you should do fine. Okay. So there's the study guide, and you should print the study guide if you could for each class. Okay? There, let me just click on it and show you what it looks like. There's the study guide, and there's just studying questions. But sometimes there are questions that are particularly interesting, I suppose. That I will be taking them up during class. So it will be beneficial for you to have the physical study guide with you so that you can fill in the answer with me, especially towards the second half of the course. there's a lot of problem solvings involved in the second half of the course. So you definitely need to have your study guide with you. Okay, so where do you find the answers? They are available to you as well. So if you click on it, there it is. Okay. And again, right, like you might wonder, hey, then why do I need to listen to you tell me what the answers are when the answers are already available? Um, because when I do it, I try to add some explanation to it, right? Like you look at this, you might not understand why the answers are the way they are, right? So like when we do it together in class, again, there is that extra added like a teacher's touch to it, if you would, okay? To help you understand it a little bit more. All right. I am sure you are eager to learn more about the evaluation. So here we go. The course is separated into two halves, I guess. Okay. We will say lecture 1 to lecture 5. That's the first half. And then we would have lecture 6 to lecture 10, which is the second half. So for the first half, you will have quiz 1 and quiz 2, which is 10% each. And then there is going to be a lab number 1, which is also 10%. You do not have to go to the campus for the lab. It's all done online. I will explain to you more about the labs later on in the course when we get closer to it. Okay, we don't have to worry about it right now. Okay, it's just done online and it's done individually. That probably is all you have to know for now. And there's going to be a test number 1, which is going to be 20%. Okay, so all these things are done completely online. In terms of the quizzes and the tests, there are three types of questions. There are your standard multiple choice questions. These are one answer each, and they are 1 mark. Okay, worth 1 mark each. In addition to the multiple choice questions, you might also see things like fill in the blanks. Fill in the blanks. You might see matching. Okay. You might see they are called hotspot questions. There will be some practice in the practice quiz, okay? But hotspot questions are it's like this. I'll give you a diagram, a picture of something, and then I will ask you to select something from that picture, okay? So for example, I can give you a picture of a molecule of DNA, and then I will say select the nitrogenous base. Then you have to know where to click in order to answer the question. Okay. Like I said, you will have practice with those in the self quiz. So most of it will be multiple choice, but you will have some of these as well. All right. And then you will have some multi-select question. Multi-select questions, they are 2 marks each, and they have more than one correct answers. Okay. In order to get full marks on the multi-select questions, you have to choose all the correct ones. If you only have some and missed some, then you will only get part marks. Okay. And then there will be a short answer as well, sometimes, depending on the quiz. Some quizzes is going to be like, you know, a lot of short answers, others not so much. It really depends on the unit. Okay, so short answers, sometimes you would be able to type the answer directly into the answer box, I guess. Other times, later on when we have to solve problems, like genetics problem, for example, you will have to show your work, and it's much easier to write the work on a piece of paper, take a picture of it, and then upload it. Okay, so again, we'll get to that later on when we get closer to those units. All right. And then that's it for the first half. Okay. Second half, same thing. Quiz 3 is going to be 10%. Quiz 4, 10%. Like there's going to be lab two, 10%, and then test number two, 20%. Okay. Everything in the second half is only related to the second half. Meaning once you finish test number one, you can burn all the notes for the first half of the course. I'm not going to ask you about them anymore. Okay. The second half is independent in terms of, assessment content from the first half. Are there any questions? No? All good? Excellent. So, talking about practice quizzes, there are self quizzes available for each lecture. It's good idea. It's good idea to try them out as earlier uh, as possible, because it will help you familiarize with taking assessment online. And this particular self quiz, I set it up so that you need to install the lockdown browser before you can do it. Okay, so it will give you an idea of how to use the lockdown browser and give you an experience of what it feels like to be doing an assessment with the lockdown browser. Okay, so do that earlier rather than later. Okay, these quizzes don't count for anything. The self quizzes, they don't count. They don't have any marks associated with them, and you can do them as often as you want. Okay, so maybe on Friday, right, if you have time, just click on it and install the lockdown browser and just make sure it's compatible with your device. Okay. There are situations where people wait until the day of the quiz and they found out that their machine is incompatible with the lockdown browser or something like that. And then they ask me what to do, right? It would be like too rushed to try to figure out what to do at that point, right? So do it early, try to see if it's okay. There's a question, are lab individual or group? It's going to be individual. Okay. All the work in the course will be individual. Because it's hard to collaborate in a virtual environment, right? So it's probably a little bit easier and better for you guys. Okay, supplementary reading. If you click on that, it will take you to the online textbook that we are using. All right. Like I said, you don't have to buy a physical textbook. There is a free one online, and the readings are completely supplementary. Okay, I won't test you on things that are in this textbook that we haven't covered in class. Okay, all the assessment are based on three things only: my PowerPoint slides, the study guide, and all the notes I give you during class. Okay, all these extra things are for you to supplement your learning. Okay, some people say, "Oh, I want to learn more about whatever." Is there somewhere I can read about it? There you go. That's the online textbook. Okay. Now, there's also video resources. You can click on that, and it's basically a bunch of videos that I found on YouTube. Right, that's related to each of the topics that we're doing. So since we click on the video resource in lecture one, all these videos are related to lecture one. Right? If you do that for lecture two, then you will have all the videos from lecture two. Right? So same thing here. These are just completely supplementary. If you already understand what I'm teaching you, then maybe you don't need these things. But if you're struggling to understand, like inductive and deductive reasoning, for example, then you might want to watch this video to see whether it helps you a little bit or not, or like you need to get uh, extra help from me, right? That's of course also an option. So it just saves you time, right? Like you don't have to go on the internet and look for things yourself. I'm almost done, and we're gonna start the lesson. Um, what else we have? There's some crosswords here for you to do. Right? You can click on that, and not a lot of words for the first topic here. Click on that one. A valid hypothesis should be testable and something. Okay, so like if you don't know what the answer is, you can click solve and then it will tell you, oh, it's falsifiable. Okay, if you know the answer, you can type it in and then you can check the answers. Okay, so this is a great way in familiarize yourself with all the new vocabularies that we'll be learning. Okay, so that's lecture one, and then exact same format for lecture two, right? There's the notes, there's the study resource, and then you're gonna have the quiz, right? Quiz cover topics from lecture one and two, and there are gonna be some concept check questions, answers. I'll explain what that is later on, and then there is gonna be the quiz. Now it looks a little bit different on your end. Let me switch to student view to show you what I mean. So this is the quiz. You will see content isn't available. That's because the quiz is scheduled for January 27th, right? So uh, that means you won't be able to access the quiz until that day, right? So on the day of the quiz, we will still have class usually, right? You can see the weekly schedule yourself. So you're not doing the quiz necessarily during our class time, okay? The quiz or the test will be available to you on the day of from 6 a.m. all the way to 11:59 p.m. Okay, so during that whole period on that day, you can do the quiz whenever you want. Okay, once you start the quiz, you will have 15 minutes to complete it. Okay, and it tells you this first quiz will have 25 multiple choice questions, two short answer questions. So no no multi-select in this particular case. And so you want to make sure you are in a quiet place where people are not going to disturb you. Because once the timer start, it's not going to stop. Even if you close the website, the web browser, the timer is still going to keep on going. Okay. Now, having said that, because it's due at 11:59 p.m., you need to start at least an hour before that, right? Like you cannot start at 11:58 and then you're like, oh, I still have 15 minutes. No, if you start on at 11:58, then you only have 1 minute to do the quiz, right? Okay. So this is the due date. It's not like the last moment that you can begin your quiz. Okay. So 15 minutes for the first quiz. Does that make sense? Okay, so I am a pretty reasonable person. I understand things happen and things has happened in the past where people are doing their quiz and then the internet got cut off and then it doesn't come back on until whatever, right, the next day. And then there are emergency where their kids needed their help, right? I get it, right? It's fine if that happens to you. Don't freak out. Just email me, explain to me your situation and then we'll work something out. Okay? It's not a big deal. But obviously, if every time there is a quiz, your internet goes out, then I get a little bit suspicious, right? Okay. So like I said, I'm a reasonable person, but then don't take advantage of of my I don't know what you call it, like of my reasonableness. Okay. Just don't abuse the system. If you really run into problems, let me know. We'll work it out and it should be fine. Okay, that's all. That's everything I want to tell you. There's the lab, which we will not talk about now. We'll talk about that later. Are you just sure? You're sure you don't have any questions before I start the lesson? Do you guys understand what the requirements are?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
okay.
you.
Thank you. So basically, all I ask you to do for each class is to download the PowerPoint slides or print out the PDF along with the study guide and show up. That's the most important thing. Okay, show up, engage, ask questions, and you should be fine. Okay, you should be fine. Um, Actually, I forgot to introduce myself. I only tell you my name, right? Okay. So once again, my name is Vincent Wong, and I am the faculty and coordinator of the program. I teach biology. this course, as well as something called anatomy physiology. That's basically like the next semester biology that you will all be taking. If you're interested in going into practical nursing, that course is very important because it lays the foundation of a lot of things that you'll be learning in practical nursing. Okay. And I've been teaching at the college. This is my 16th years, right? So I've been here for some time. If you run into any problems, doesn't have to be related to my course. If you just need help finding things or not sure how to get in touch with, say the tutoring service or anything related to program, feel free to send me an email and, I'll be happy to answer your question. And if I don't know the answer, I will always direct you to someone who does. All right, let's get started. Here is my email. It's at the beginning of every first slide of all the PowerPoints. In case if you need it. Oh, thank you for everything. Everyone looks younger on on the camera. Huh? When you meet them in person, maybe it's different. But thank you.
No, actually, I saw you in person in orientation. You
Oh,
look really
you can. Oh,
fun.
yeah, you. Okay, I think I remember the voice now. Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this first lesson is called scientific methods. It's not exactly 100% biology yet, but it's an important concept to learn because it applies to not just biology, but science in general. Of course, the two main sciences you're taking is going to be chemistry and biology. And so some of these principles that we'll be learning will be applicable. Particularly for my course, the scientific method is very important in helping you do well in the first lab. Okay? The first lab is it's a beetroot experiment. Even though you won't be physically doing it, you'll be watching me do it on the video, basically. But you will have to apply the principles of scientific methods in order to prepare your lab report. Okay, so please do ask questions if you don't understand, and here we go. All right, so I'm gonna slow down a little bit now. Okay, I know it sounds like I was talking really fast, but I was trying to get through all the background stuff so we can have more time with learning the materials. Okay, now I'm not sure where you guys are at in terms of like biology. You might have taken it, recently in high school, or you might have been working and then coming back to school and then you haven't taken biology before. It doesn't really matter, okay? My assumption is nobody has taken any biology, and I'm gonna start at the basic level, and then I'm gonna try to build on top of that. Okay? And so let's start with the very definition of what biology is, okay? Biology is the scientific study of living things. Okay? Scientific study of living things. Right? So that there's two parts to this definition. Okay? There is scientific study, and then there is the living things portion. So let's try to break these two concepts down a little bit further. But first, there are different branches of biology. Okay? So I told you next semester you will be taking pre-anatomy and physiology. So anatomy is the study of body structure. Basically, anatomy is what is it called? Okay? So if we look at the heart, we're like, oh, this is called the aorta, this is called the atrium, and so the name of it, right? The name of the body parts, the name of the organs, that's anatomy. Right? So that's a branch of biology, right? You need to know what things are called before you can study them, right? You gotta give it a name. Physiology is the study of functions of the structures in the body. In other words, physiology is what does it do, right? So next semester, when you do anatomy physiology, you will learn what the thing is called, and then you will learn the function of that thing. Right? So it's called the atrium. What does it do? Well, it pumps blood so that it goes to the ventricles, for example. Another branch of biology is histology. Histology is the study of cells and tissues. Okay, so over here we have a slide that shows some kind of tissue. Yeah, like you don't know what this is now, uh, unless some of you do. And anybody know this by any chance? Any? No? Okay. So yeah, you wouldn't know because you haven't learned it yet, right? This is the kidney. This is the kidney. Right? Next semester, after you finish the course, you look at this and you see Bowman's capsule or Bowman's space here, you'll be like, oh, I know that's the kidney. Right? So, but looking at the cells, looking at the structure of the and the organization of the cells in the kidney and seeing whether there's something wrong with it or not, that's called histology. And that is very important diagnostic tools in medicine. Okay, a lot of the doctors, sometimes they take what's called like a biopsy, right? You might have heard of that. Take a little sample from your tissue, and then they look at it under the microscope. That's basically histology, right? And by looking at the cellular organization, they are able to tell you whether things are normal or not. Okay, so we'll do a little bit of histology next semester as well. Genetics is another branch of biology. That's something we will do this semester later on in the course. And it's one of the most enjoyable units for many students. Okay, we talk about things like what if you have blue eyes and your spouse have brown eyes? What's the probability that your children are gonna have light blue eyes? Okay, we're gonna be doing calculations. We're gonna be looking at like hereditary diseases, like hemophilia, for example, and calculating the chances of these things showing up in different generations. Okay, so there are many disciplines in biology, and we will be touching, just a few of these things here and there in this program. Okay, so back to the definition, right? Biology is the scientific studies of living things. Then it makes sense to talk about what living things are. Okay, so living things, um, it's one of those things that we can tell whether something is living or not. But then if we really have to define it, then it's maybe a little bit tricky, right? So I'm sure you have no trouble separating the living things here and from the non-living things in the picture. Like, of course, a zebra is living thing, and then a teddy bear is not. Um, and there are certain characteristics that are only unique to living things, which you will not find in non-living things. So I'm just gonna open it to the class right now. Can you guys give me some examples? Again, you can type it in chat box. You can unmute and speak. I'm looking for some characteristics that are associated with living things. Okay. Don't scroll ahead to the future slides. Okay. Just tell me whatever's on your mind. Go ahead, please.
Like speaking thoughts.
Okay.
Uh,
So language, you're saying? Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I see reproduce, breathing, have a pulse. Okay. Yeah, so these are a lot of the things that eating. Okay. A lot of these things are kind of unique to living things, right? And these are some of the things that we use to help us determine whether something is alive or not. Okay, but it's a little bit tricky. Okay, someone say movement just now. Um, we often cannot use these things as a single determining factor to see whether something is alive or not. Okay, so for example, take movement for example, right? A zebra moves and it's alive. Fantastic. Okay. A tree doesn't really move though, right? That's it. But it doesn't mean it's not living. On the other hand, a car moves, but a car is, of course, non-living, right? Okay, so there are a lot of these factors that we try to put together to define what a living thing it is, and yet we cannot use a single one of them to decide whether something is living or not. Okay, it's like a checklist that we have to go through, right? Um, and so it turns out scientists have agreed that there are seven characteristics that we can use to figure out whether something is living or not. Now, one of the recurring themes that we're going to be seeing in this course is that in science, we try to categorize things, okay? We try to put things into, this group and that group, but more often than not, there are going to be exceptions and overlaps, right? For example, does anybody know what this picture is showing? We've seen something similar to that before. Okay, bacteria, good try. Virus, that's it. Okay, virus. By the way, for those of you who think I'm answering my own questions, I'm not. Okay, I'm just reading off from the chat box. Okay, in the past, I get comments saying, give us some time to think about it. Don't answer your own question. I'm not. Okay? I'm just reading the answers you guys have in the chat box. Yes, this is a virus. Might not be the coronavirus. It could be some other virus. But virus is it's an exception. Um, People actually cannot agree whether it's a living thing or a non-living thing. Okay, so on one hand, it fits the description of a living thing, but there are conditions attached to it. Okay, for example, a virus is able to reproduce like living things can. However, it can only reproduce if it's inside another living thing. Okay, if you have virus in a tube, okay, with no other living thing in there, then the virus is going to stay dormant. It's not going to be able to replicate itself. Okay, it's only when it's inside another living thing, then it can make copies of themselves. Okay, so because of that, then people say, okay, then virus is more like it has the potential for life, but it's not really alive on its own. Okay, it's only alive when it's inside another living thing, right? The point being, as much as scientists try to put things into categories, there will always be some exceptions. And I want you to keep this in mind as you learn different things in the course. Okay. Um, you will see a lot of exceptions. Okay. And they might not make sense, and that's okay. Right. We just try our best, right, to fit the stuff into various categories. Okay. So, like I said, although life takes many forms, but all living things share a set of common characteristics. Okay, here are three very different looking organisms. Okay, we have this. This is called oxalotl. Um, it's actually illegal to have these things as pets in some provinces in Canada, but you can see them at the aquarium. Okay, they look pretty cute. There is a poison dart frog right here, and here is a kind of jellyfish. And they look very different, and yet, right, they share a set of common characteristics that allows us to definitively say that they are living things. Okay? So we are going to go through these seven characteristics. Now, what I was saying earlier is that if you have the study guide, right, then later on it says list the seven characteristics of living organisms. Then you can practice, right? You can write them down. That's what the study guide is for. Okay, it's based on the stuff I'm teaching you in class. Okay, so here we go. First characteristic, it is order. Order. All living things exhibit complex but ordered organization. In other words, living things are not random, okay? There are certain patterns that is almost like elegant to them. Okay? For example, if you look at animals, most animals have left-right symmetry. Okay, butterfly, it's symmetrical, right? We humans, we have symmetry. Okay, so these symmetries is an example of organization. It's an example of order. You look at the seashells, the spiral, right? That's a mathematical. There are mathematical rules that governs that. Okay, it's not randomly generated, right? Each spiral kind of has a fixed ratio to them, right? The color pattern on the flower, right? It's again not randomly organized, right? You see the red is really more concentrated on the inside in this case, and then you have the yellows on the outside. And this organization is not just restricted to the we call it the gross level. Gross, Gross. Gross does not mean like it's like disgusting. Like gross means like on a big level. Okay, this level of organization also exists when you zoom into the organism and you keep on looking at it at the cellular level, like in this picture. Right, this picture shows uh, the vessel of a leaf, and you can see even at the cellular level, you can see there's like this circular structure in the middle. Okay, and then the cells are like organizing in a way that it forms an X in the middle. Okay, so these are only things that exist in in living things. Now, of course, like I said, right? If you open up like your cell phone or something, you're gonna see it's very organized as well, right? So these these characteristics, it's not one of them is not enough to say whether something is living or not. Okay, you have to go through the whole list in order to determine something is living or not. So this picture is kind of useful because as we progress through the course, we actually going to move up this hierarchy of organization. Yeah. So we're not there yet today. Okay, but like starting lecture two, we will start at the bottom of the hierarchy, and that is atom. Okay, so we'll learn more about atoms later. I'm sure you will learn about them in chemistry. But for now, atoms are basically uh, building blocks that makes up everything in the universe. Okay, so for example, to make a human, right, the atoms that we need are mostly carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Don't worry about writing down the full name, okay, if you don't know them. We're going to learn them later. But these are the key ingredient that makes up 96% of the whole body. Okay, just 5 building blocks. And there are some other ones that are there, but these are the key ones. Okay, so the atoms can come together to form molecules. Does anybody have an example of a molecule that you might find in the body? Like an important molecule? No, that's okay. So molecule would be like water. Water is a molecule. Does anybody know the formula for water? Oh, it's already typed out there. It's H2O. That's good, right? So that's a molecule, right? It takes 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen, right? So these molecules, we have small molecules like water. Okay, some of you might know sugar. Sugar is C6H12O6. You don't have to memorize them now. I'm just showing you. We will learn all these things later on as we progress. So these are small molecules. They have, 3 atoms here, 24 atoms. And then there are like big molecules, right? Serena said DNA, that's a macromolecule. Instead of having like just 20 or like 3 atoms, these macromolecules have hundreds and thousands of atoms in them. So DNA is a macromolecule. Protein is another one, for example. Right? So we'll spend a lot of time learning about these things. And then we'll move on to organelles, which are like little structures inside a cell that performs different functions. And then the cell, that's the smallest unit of a living thing. Okay? All living things are made up of cells. Okay? Whether we're talking about humans, we're talking about fish, trees, right? Fungus, if it's alive, then it's made up of cells. Okay? So that here, the cell, that's gonna take us all the way to lecture 9. Okay? All the way to lecture 9. Week 12, I think. Okay, week 12. And then the last week, week 13 and 14, we're gonna learn about tissues. Okay, so tissue is like a bunch of cells coming together and performing a specific function. So, for example, you have different types of connective tissue in the body that glues things together. Okay, then that's it. Then you're gonna this is lecture 10, sorry, week 13, lecture 10. And then that's it. We finished the course here. Next semester, we will learn about the organs and organ system. Okay. So this is the hierarchy of organization. Now, in case I've lost you, like what are we talking about here? We're talking about the characteristic of living things, and all living things have this organization associated with them. Okay. And it follows this hierarchy to build the whole organism. Okay, whether it's a human, whether it's a tree that you're talking about, whether it's an earthworm that you're talking about, they all have this hierarchy of organization associated with them. Okay, so that's the first characteristic of living things. Okay, someone said mitochondria. Very good. That's an example of an organelle. All right, next characteristic is the ability to maintain homeostasis. Ability to maintain homeostasis. So first of all, what is homeostasis? Homeostasis is the ability to maintain an internal balance. Okay, despite changes in the environment, right? The surrounding might get cold, might get hot, but we as humans, we are able to maintain a core body temperature. Does anybody know what temperature we should be at? You will notice if you have kids, because you have to check the temperature when they have a fever, right? What's the normal body temperature in Celsius? Anybody? Good. Close. Anyone else? A little bit high. Yep, 37 degrees. That's right. So that's our core body temperature, and there are various ways that we are able to maintain that despite changes in the ambient temperature. Okay, so that ability to maintain an internal balance is called homeostasis. So to maintain the balance, to maintain homeostasis, there are different ways of achieving it. Okay? You can achieve it through physiological mechanism or behavioral mechanism. Okay? Mechanism is just like a fancy word for ways. Okay, ways. Okay, so what are the physiological ways and behavioral ways to do it? Well, let's talk about behavioral first. It's easy. Okay, behavioral is something you do. Okay. Physiological is something your body does for you. Okay. So yeah, I see some examples there. Let's take temperature change for example. Let's say like today. Today they say it's the coldest day of the year, although that doesn't mean much because there only has been 8 days in the year so far. But they say it's the coldest day of the year, okay? -15 with wind chill. All right. So if I go outside like this without my jacket, right, I get cold, right? So what's my body gonna do to warm me up when I am cold? Shiver, right? Shivering. Now, is shivering physiological or is it behavioral? Well, it's gonna be physiological because it's something that your body does for you, right? Like I cannot like fake a shake, fake a shiver, right? Like it's something that the body kicks in and start doing automatically when you're cold. So when your body does it for you, it's physiological. Okay. What about some behavioral mechanism I can do to keep myself warm? Well, then I put on a jacket, right? Okay, put on a hood, I put on my gloves. These are things that we do almost like deliberately. You learn to do these things from another person. Does that make sense? Physiological versus behavioral. Now, temperature is just one example of homeostasis. I want you to understand that there are many homeostatic processes that happens in the body, right? Okay. Uh, Regulating your blood sugar, that's homeostasis. You can't have it too high, you cannot have it too low. Okay? People who have certain conditions cannot regulate their blood sugar, right? Do you know what condition I'm talking about? Yeah, exactly, right? Diabetes, right? So um, it's important to be able to maintain homeostasis, but sometimes your body fails to do that, and usually that leads to some kind of diseases. Okay, very quickly, we have a lizard here on the top right, and Mr. Lizard here is cold-blooded as opposed to warm-blooded. We are warm-blooded, meaning we keep core body temperature at a particular number, 37. But for them, they can't maintain a fixed body temperature. So in order to stay warm, they have to take a sun bath in, on a rock. So do you think? Okay, let's do a poll. Do you think this is A, physiological, or B, behavioral? Okay, the lizard resting on the rock. Is it A, physiological, or is it B, behavioral? Okay. If you're not able to see the poll, that's okay. Just either answer in the chat or write it down yourself. Okay. Okay, I get about 16 answers. Anyone else? The lizard resting on the rock. Is it physiological? Did the body did it for the lizard or did the lizard do it itself? Okay, not bad. Most of you got it right. This would be behavioral. Like obviously I don't know what the lizard is thinking, but I I would assume it has control over its body in terms of where it goes. Okay? So the fact that it crawls onto the rock and stay there and soak up the sun, that would be behavioral. Okay? The dog stick their tongue out to cool down. That is also behavioral. Okay, again, I would imagine they have control of where to put their tongue. Okay, let's just do one more very quickly to make sure we all get this. If you cut your finger and then the bleeding stops, is that physiological or behavioral? Okay, like it stops on its own, right? What do you think? Let's choose A or B. Hey, very good. Much better this time. Almost everybody who participated got the right answer. Anyone else before I close it? All right, thank you so much. That is physiological right there, right? Because the breathing stops, your body clots the blood for you, right? Okay. For deeper cuts, you might have to do some behavioral assistance, right? Like, applying pressure, putting a band-aid on, right? So lifting your hand up, right? So all those things that you do extra in addition to what your body does for you, that would be behavioral. Okay. So once again, we're talking about characteristics of living things. Number one is order and complexity. Number two is the ability to maintain homeostasis. All right, let's have a quick break. Just 5 minutes, okay? Stretch your legs. Uh, we will resume at 1:40. If you have any questions, please leave them in the chat. For those of you who joined us a little bit later, don't worry. Whatever you miss is going to be posted on online after class as a recording. All right, see you guys in a bit. All right, welcome back. Let's keep going. So what's the next characteristics of living things? Okay, it's the ability to grow and to develop. Okay, so living things, depending on what kind of living things you're talking about. Some living things they look very similar throughout their entire life cycle. Like if you think of a bacterium or something, right? Like when it's first formed, all the way to the point where it splits and become two bacteria, it looks pretty much the same. Okay, so not much change in that process, but doesn't mean it's not growing, right? For humans, um, our baby form obviously look very different from our adult form, but the basic stuff are there. Okay, like the eyes and the nose and mouth, that's where they're supposed to be when we're young compared to now. Okay, what I mean by that is for something like a butterfly, then the stages are like completely not recognizable, right? And unless you learned it, from reading a book or going to school, you would not have guessed the caterpillar and the butterfly is actually the same organism, right? So depending on what kind of organisms you're talking about, um, even though some development may be more drastic than others, but it's a feature, right, of living things. So this one is pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Next one, and some of you have alluded to it earlier, that living things need to eat, but eating is not necessarily the way to do it for all organisms. Okay, for example, a plant, a tree does not eat per se, but it still needs energy, right? That's the reason we eat, right? You and I eat to get energy from the food, and to survive, right? Plants, they don't need to eat, they don't consume other organisms, but they still need to um, obtain energy, and the way they do it, of course, is through the sunlight, right? So if it's alive, then it needs to obtain energy through some way. Okay. So animals, most of them are consumers. They eat, they obtain food by eating, by consuming other living things. For things like fungus, they obtain energy through breaking down dead things. For plants, they obtain energy through photosynthesis. The ways varies, but we all need energy to be a living thing. The next characteristic is the ability to respond to stimuli. Okay, so a stimuli is some kind of trigger in the environment. Okay, it's actually a plural here. The singular word is stimulus, L-U-S instead of L-I. So this plant here, you might have seen it before. It's called a Venus flytrap, and they sometimes are called carnivorous plants because they eat bugs, right? So they have these little tentacles on their flowers, and when a bee lands on them and touches some of these tentacles, it causes the plant to close the trap, and then it will digest the um, the bee. So when the bee lands on it, that's a stimulus. Okay, that's a trigger, and the plant closing on it is a response to that trigger. Okay? Similarly, for us, like we don't, eat the bugs, but then when we touch something sharp, your body automatically recoils the finger, right? And that would be an example of the ability to respond to some kind of stimulus. So this actually relates to homeostasis. Okay? When your body try to maintain homeostasis, that actually is in response to a stimulus. Right? If it's hot outside, that's a stimulus. It triggers your body to respond accordingly. Right? Your body might start to sweat to cool you down. Okay. It will trigger you to respond by, turning on the fan, drinking something cold, taking off your jacket, right? So this one is closely related to the homeostasis characteristics. Next one, the ability to reproduce. Some of you mentioned that earlier. Living things are able to create more of their own kind. Polar bears can make more polar bears, so on and so forth. But they tend to only produce their own species, right? Okay. You're not gonna have polar bear producing like a grizzly bear or something like that. Like you're gonna have to reproduce your own kind. All right. Although sometimes like humans can um, kind of encourage the mating of different species to create an organism that suits their need. Uh, a perfect example of that would be a mule. Does anybody know what a mule is? How do you make a mule? Did you know there's no such thing as like getting a mule and a mule and then mate them and produce more mules? Yeah, a lot of you have mentioned it in the chat. That's right. A mule is the product of a donkey and a horse. Okay, and the result is the mule, which is very strong. It's great for carrying loads and things like that. It satisfies many farming needs, for example. But the mule is sterile. Okay, they cannot make babies on their own. And so that's what happens when different species are crossed. Right? They might be able to produce offspring, but the offspring is often going to be sterile. Okay, and lastly, we have the ability to adapt and evolve. Right? So evolution is an important aspect of living things. uh, Sometimes people hear the word evolution and then they are saying, it's just a theory, is not true. So there are different kinds of evolution that you can learn about. Um, there is a kind of evolution that you cannot deny because it's happening every day, and it has happened during the pandemic. When the virus evolves, when it changes, every time it changes and it gets better at adapting to evading our immune system, that's when you have a new variant of concern. Okay, and that means the vaccine that you had no longer works, right? So that's an example of evolution, right? So things like bacteria and viruses, they tend to evolve very rapidly. Eh, When it comes to a whole organism, like a bird or like a seahorse, yeah, evolution still happens, but it takes longer for it to occur, and you might not be able to see it, within our lifetime, right? So uh, that's the aspect that people find more difficult to accept. Um, but then, the very rapid evolution of microorganisms that causes medical concerns, for example, that's something that's happening, and it's undeniable. So, what's the purpose of adapting and evolving? Well, these allows the organisms to survive better. Okay, so for example, the hummingbird has a very long beak that allows them to get the nectar from the plant that has the really deep pockets. Okay, if the beak were like shorter, like just here, then it's not going to be able to get all the nectars, right? So by evolving that long beak over time, um, then they're able to do so. So there is a seahorse here. I don't know if you can see, and it blends really well with the background, right? Yeah, and so that again enhance its survival, uh, because it's going to be able to avoid predators. Okay, so All living things is able to adapt and evolve. Um, it's a, evolution is a big topic. We don't have a lot of time to go through it, but I just want to clarify when we say living things can evolve, I don't mean like individual organisms can evolve. It's not like the hummingbird is born with like a short beak like this, and then they're like, oh no, I need to, get the deeper nectar. So let's evolve and have like a longer beak. Okay. Individuals do not evolve, but the population evolves. Okay. So I'll leave it at that. If you have more questions, I'll explain to you maybe after class. All right, so 7 characteristics. Let's just mentally, you can mentally record. I'll say it out loud. Complexity, right? Order and complexity, that's number one. Number two, the ability to maintain homeostasis. Number three, the ability to grow and develop. And then there is also respond to stimulus. There is the requirement for energy. And then there's the ability to reproduce. And then finally, number seven, the ability to adapt and evolve. Any questions?
Could you please repeat the number one and number two?
Yeah, sure. It's right here. Number one is order, right? Order and complexity. Number two is ability to maintain homeostasis. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, why are we talking about this? Well, we basically going through the definition of biology, right? So, biology is the scientific study of living things. We already explained what a living things is. We spent an hour talking about it. So by now you should have a pretty good grasp of what it is. Now we're going to spend the next little bit talking about scientific study. What is the meaning of scientific study? So, what is science? Well, the word science is derived from Latin, which a lot of the science are originally done using that language. And the root word associated with science in Latin means to know. Right? So, science is basically a way of understanding what's going on around us by asking questions, okay, based on inquiry, by asking questions. Right? And humans, by nature, are curious. Right? We always want to find out like why things are happening the way they are, and we want to know the reason behind this and behind that. And this curiosity is what drives science in general. So there are two main scientific approaches that are being used in terms of trying to understand what's going on in the world. The first approach is called discovery science, which is what we will be doing today. I think we have time to finish that one. And then the second part is called hypothesis-driven science. Okay, we will finish that next week. So what is the difference between them, and when to use which one? Well, first of all, before I go any further, it's not like you use one and then you don't use the other. The two are kind of connected, like they are related to each other. And sometimes you are going to be using both methods in order to try to address what's going on and try to understand why things are the way they are. So let's start with discovery science. Discovery science, I'll just read it to you first, involves studying system without changing it in any way. Example, global warming studied by observation. So basically, in simple terms, discovery science is based on observations. Okay. Think of a kid going to the zoo the first time, and then they are looking at this animal that they have never seen. Okay, I don't know, like a zebra or something. Okay, And then they're just like curious, right? They're just studying it with their eyes, okay? They're just watching it. They're not, poking at it. They're not changing the zebra in any way. They're just watching, okay? And there must be a million questions, right? Why is the horse black and white, right? They might probably think it's a horse, right? Okay, or why is this? Why this? So comes along with the observations, there are a lot of questions that arises, right? And that's basically what discovery science is. Okay, there are many things that you can study without changing it. Okay, global warming is one thing, right? You're just looking at what's happening, right? Astronomy, that's another discovery science. Okay, so you're just watching, you are making observations. That's the essence of discovery science. You're not doing an experiment. You're just like watching it. Okay, watching something that's already taking place, and then you can ask questions about it. Now, when we do observations, the observations can be qualitative or quantitative. Okay? Qualitative is kind of the same root word as quality. Okay, so when let's you think of like buying a new T-shirt or something, right? Okay, how do you know it's good quality? Well, you're gonna have to feel it, right? You're gonna have to touch it. You're gonna have to, try it on and stuff like that, right? So qualitative observations are made using our senses. Okay, so what kind of senses do we have? We have five senses, right? What are the five senses I'm talking about?
Eye, ear, vision, hearing,
Yeah, very good.
skin, touch,
Yeah, exactly, right? So, all these things, right? We see with our eyes, we smell with our nose, and we touch with our hands. All these senses we use in qualitative observation. Okay. Our senses are relatively limited though, okay? We can't see very far, we can't see very small necessarily. So a lot of times scientists, they use various tools to help extend our senses. So we can look at very small things using a microscope. We can look at things that are really far away using a telescope, right? So we extend our senses. So let's take a look at, let's take a short note here, right? And write down qualitative. Qualitative observation. Right? So using senses. Right? Qualitative observations. So let's say we use our eyes. Okay, so sight. What kind of information can we get just by looking at something? Okay, so let's say we look at an apple. Okay, so what kind of qualitative observation can you make? Okay, so someone say color. Good. Okay, so it's red, it's green, it's yellow. Okay, that's color. What else? Just throw me some stuff. Okay, just type something in the chat box. Good apple, bad apple. Hard to tell. I guess if you see a big bruise, then it's bad apple, right? Um, but might not always be possible. Shape, yeah, good. Uh, Size, yeah, yeah, yeah. But again, we're not using numbers here, right? Okay, that's the key thing. When you say size, you're like, oh, it's big, it's small, right? It's like medium size. Um, Material, yeah, sometimes. Although it's not always possible, right? Like, like here, I show you my mug here. That's my mug. Like, can you tell what this is made up of? Like, is this made up of metal? Is it made up of wood? Is it made of plastic? Right? It's not always possible to tell just by looking at it, right? Okay. Uh, Texture again, not something you can figure out necessarily with the with just by looking. Anyways, we color, shape, size, okay, maybe amount, yeah. Again, not numbers though, okay? Like, is it like it's a lot of apples, a few apples, right? Okay, not necessarily using numbers. These are qualitative observations, okay? So let's use another one. Let's say touch, okay? Now you can say texture. Okay? Like, oh, I touched the phone. It's smooth, right? Okay, smooth. That's an example of a word. Smooth. What else? What other? It's soft. Okay, doesn't have to be the apple. You can think of other things. Okay, what else? Couple more, please. Yeah, sure. It's hard. Yeah. Rough. Good. Looking for one more. I have another one in mind. What else can you feel with the fingers? Sharp. That's exactly what I'm looking for. There you go, right? Now with touch, you can also tell temperature. And again, I gotta stress this, we are not using numbers. As soon as you use numbers, then it's gonna be like quantitative. That's the other one that we're gonna be doing, okay? Qualitative is all about just your senses, okay? So what's the temperature like? Is it warm to the touch? Is it, cool? Like what is it, right? Okay, that's good. And let's move on to another one. Smell. Okay, how do things smell like? What are some description for smell? Sure, fresh. Floral. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good. Smells burnt. Sure. That's what my wife said every time I cook something. Oh, it smells burnt. Okay, and then smells off awful, sweaty. Is this okay? Sweaty. Yeah. Okay. Um, sweet. Right. Okay. Odorless. No smell. That's okay as well. Okay, so you guys have the right concept. Okay, what else am I missing here? Taste. You should never taste anything in the lab unless you were instructed to do so. But if you were to taste something, sweet, right? Of course. Uh, bitter, yeah. Spicy is actually not a taste, but I get what you mean. I will put it there, sure. Spicy is more like a sensation. It's more like a feeling, which you'll learn next semester. What else? Sour, very good. Okay, and then last one is sound, right? Hearing. This one is not commonly used. Well, certainly not going to be used in the context of what we're doing. But if you imagine someone observing like animals, then the sound would be useful, right? They would be like, oh, the mating call of this bird sounds like this. Okay, so like in certain situation it might be useful. So, e.g., the mating call of a bird or something. Right? Or like if you took high school chemistry, you remember to test for hydrogen, you have a burning splint and then it makes a pop sound, right? That's an example of using hearing. Okay, so these are all qualitative observations. Do you guys understand? If I give you a picture of something on the quiz and I ask you to describe it using qualitative observations, I hope you'll be able to do that, okay? All right. Very quickly, you don't have to know what these are. In fact, it's better if you don't assume you know what you're looking at. What are some qualitative observations? Again, just like throw them in the chat. What Obviously, you cannot touch them, so don't tell me they are soft or hard. Like you wouldn't know, I wouldn't know. But you know, just by looking at them, what are some qualitative observations you can make? Whatever these are, doesn't really matter. Okay, sure. Yeah, they're small. Anyone else? Gray. In color. Yeah, yeah. What else? Small and gray. A lot. Okay, sure. Okay. Now, don't just say shape. Actually, give me the shape that you think, right? Yeah, good. Oval. Right. Very good. Right. So these are all qualitative observations. All right. What's the biggest problem with qualitative observations? Well, the biggest problem with qualitative observations is what smells fresh to you is not necessarily fresh for me. Okay. Like when we go to the mall, my daughters they like the Bath Bath and Body Works. Is that the name of the store where they sell like all these very fragrant
Yeah, yeah, my favorite store.
yeah, so they love the smell. They're like, oh, it smells so good. But for me, every time I walk by, I gotta hold my breath. I'm like, oh, this is too strong. This is too pungent. I don't like it, right? So it's a very subjective thing, right? It's very different for different people, right? When we say, oh, this thing is big, right? But it might look big to you, but it might look small for someone else, right? Like, so these things are very subjective. And when we try to describe things in science, subjective things are okay to use in some contexts, but when we try to have more accurate recordings of what we are observing, then qualitative observations is not ideal. So that's where we will use quantitative observations instead, right? And again, just to bring you guys back, we are talking about the different ways to do science. One of the ways is discovery science, which is just like making observations. So you can make observations just by using your senses, like all the ones we wrote down, or we can make observations using measurements. Okay, so when we do quantitative observations, we often need to have some kind of instruments to help us make the measurements. Okay, so quantitative observations. Okay, so using tools and instruments to make numeric measurements. Okay, some examples. Length. Okay. How long is it? Right? Like, okay, so like you say the apple is big, but like, what's the length? What's the diameter, for example? Right? That's a measurement of length, and we're gonna need to have a ruler. Anything else? Okay, and what would a scale do for us? What kind of information is a scale going to be able to tell you? The weight, that's right. The weight, right? How heavy is it? Right? It looks heavy, but it might look can be deceiving, right? Okay, what else? Other things that you can measure, right? Take some of these things that we're saying and try to, think of if there is a way to be less subjective about it. Like, is there a way to use numbers to represent some of these things? Not all of them are possible, but anything else that comes to your mind? Like how do we measure how sour something is? Does anybody know that? Maybe. That's okay. So like, for example, like the pH of something, right? We'll talk more about pH later, but this is for acidity. You can have a number that describe how acidic something is. Yeah, using a pH meter exactly, right? Okay, so vinegar, for example, it's like, 1.3, right? And then you can have something even more acidic, right? Like stomach acid, right? That's 1. So using a number. Yeah, temperature, good. Okay. Density, that's another one. Density is mass divided by volume. You don't have to memorize the formula. I'm just telling you. Okay. Using a thermometer to measure temperature. Yeah, exactly, right? The amount. So instead of saying, oh, it's a lot, well, actually count them. How many? Like it's 20, it's 30, right? Then you're not adding your like own opinion to it, right? Like, oh, there are 40 apples. Whether you think it's a lot or not is irrelevant, right? It's up to the interpretation of the person who's looking at it. Yeah, you can use a stopwatch to measure how fast something is going. Okay? Basically, here's the point. If you are just using your senses, no numbers, then it's qualitative. Qualitative. Think of buying a shirt, okay? You're just using your senses. Okay? I don't think you're going to be bringing like a measuring tape to buy a shirt at Walmart, okay? If you do, then you are doing quantitative observations, okay? You're exactly using numbers, okay? Some kind of instrumentation. All right. So generally speaking, qualitative is it's not as accurate, but it doesn't mean it's not useful. Okay. Quantitative, on the other hand, it's more objective, and it tends to be a little bit more accurate in reporting observations. Okay. So if you and I both know how to use the ruler correctly, when you report the length, it should be same as when I report it, because we use the same instrumentation. All right. So here are some bacteria actually, these red little guys, and you might look at that and you're like, oh, that looks big, that looks small, but like exactly how long is it, right? So oftentimes when you are using microscope, there's going to be a reference bar that's going to be included. And this reference bar, this white line here, it tells you this particular line is 10 micrometer long. Okay, 10 micrometer is a special U. 10 micrometer is basically, okay, so I'll tell you one meter equals to 10 to the 6 micrometer. Okay, don't have to memorize that. You'll learn that in math later on. So a million micrometer in a meter, basically. So this line is 10 micrometer. So if I want to roughly estimate how long this thing is, well, this looks like it's gonna fit on this white line, 3 times, I say. So this one is probably 10 divided by 3, so about 3.3 micrometer. Okay. It's not super accurate. Like, I mean, there are ways to figure out exactly, but it's better than saying big and small and long and short. Okay, now we have a number. We have a range. Okay, it's definitely shorter than 10 micrometers. Okay, and I would say it's definitely shorter than 5 micrometer. Okay, so like we limit it into a range. Okay, are we good, guys? All right, I hope so. Let's do a little bit, a few more slides. So, in discovery science, we are making all these observations. Okay, we write down a bunch of observations, and generally we're not going to be doing discovery science on something we already know. Okay, like you're not gonna do discovery science on an apple. We already know what an apple is. There's not many questions we can ask about it, I suppose. So, in real life, scientists actually use this to solve problems that they haven't encountered before. And once they make all these observations, then the next step is to use what's called inductive reasoning to try to come up with some kind of generalization for all the observations. So let me give you a few examples to help you understand what's going on. And then we will stop. So when my kids were younger, I would take them to Dollaramas to let them choose a gift or something like that. They're older now, and so they won't they are not content with the gifts from Dollaramas anymore. But anyway, so I took them to Dollarama, and my younger one at the time, she was around 5 years old, I think, and then she was like, "Oh, can I buy this eraser here? Like, is that okay? But it doesn't have a price on it." And then I was thinking at the time, time to educate her about inductive reasoning. So I took her to the aisle where she found the eraser, and I was like, okay, let's take a look at this aisle here. Okay, like how much are the pencil? So she's like, oh, it says $2. I was like, good. How much are the I don't know, stickers? It was like, oh, $2. And then how much are the glue sticks? Right, $2. And then after a few more examples, she came to a realization. She was like, oh, everything on this board is $2, right? That is basically inductive reasoning, okay? You make observations and then you come up with a generalization. Now, the important thing to note here is the generalization might not necessarily be correct, okay? It might be, yeah, everything here is 2, but the eraser she's holding without the price tag, I don't know, that might be $4, okay? Like, we don't know. But that's not the point. We're not trying to we're not trying to come up with the right answer necessarily. We're trying to come up with some kind of general rule that seems to apply to all the observations that we've made. Does that make sense? Yeah, coming up with an overall conclusion, coming up with an overall. I like the word generalization better than conclusion. Okay, because conclusion sounds like it's definitive, right? And this is just like a generalization, which might or might not be true. Okay, we good? One more example here. Let's see. Okay, so these are actual pictures, okay, of the organism. So this is the wings of a fly, and you look at the wings of a fly, you're like, oh, okay. The fly is made up of cells. Okay, this is a tree. Like obviously this is not a real tree, but then like these are real tree specimen in the circle picture. And you look at the tree, you're like, oh, tree is made up of cells. Okay, mushroom is made up of cells, fish is made up of cells, bird is made up of cells. So those are the observations. Okay, those are observations. What would be the generalization? What would be the generalization? Give me a sentence that would sum up all these individual observations. Mushroom is made up of cells. Okay, so we have one. All living things, yeah, are made up of cells. Yeah, exactly. Right? All living things are made up of cells. That's it. Right? That's the generalization. So this is called inductive reasoning. You are taking many little observations that are related to each other, and then you're coming up with some generalization. That's inductive reasoning. Okay? Any last minute question before we end the class? Well, if you think of anything else, feel free to email me. It's at the beginning of the PowerPoint. I'm not gonna go to that slide again. Next class we'll finish the rest of the lecture. We'll talk about deductive reasoning, which is a continuation of this. So print the PowerPoint slide. If you did not do it today, definitely print the study guides. We'll be using the study guide next class. In fact, you'll be broken down into groups to work on some of the questions there. And if you have not already, please spend some time to explore the online learning platform. Specifically, I will be posting announcement regularly. So whenever you visit the course homepage, I mean, there are nothing right now, but I will be posting things after every class, so you can take a look. And very importantly, before you go, okay, just in maybe half an hour later, you can come back to the course homepage, and then you can click on this thing right here, okay, the class notes and the lecture recordings. Okay, the link, you go there, and then I will have the link of the recordings for today. Okay, if you missed first half of the lecture, it will be here. And then I will also post at the same place right here. You will see the class notes for today. Okay, let me just quickly show you for my morning class, then you will know what I mean. Okay, so for them, okay, there's gonna be an announcement. Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Every time I post an announcement, apparently it's gonna be like right in your face. You can't miss it. Okay, but in case you do miss it, click on announcement. Okay. And then this is for my other class, okay? So like they also have lecture recording, and then you will see, you know, class notes, January 8th. And then I will keep on adding more and more class notes. These class notes are the ones we take in class. It's not a lot today, okay? But later on for more complicated lectures, there will be more writings and stuff like that. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for your attention, and I hope to see you all again next Monday, okay? Take care, guys. Have a good day.